Welcome to Health, Wellbeing and Lifestyle, where professionals in the field inform, educate and inspire the community to be healthier, more balanced and live the lifestyle they love. And today we have Caroline Pope in the studio. She's an animal communicator and therapist, and we are going to be talking about the art of animal communication. Welcome, Caroline.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
Yeah, it's lovely to have you. Now, can anybody communicate with animals?
Absolutely. We are all born with the ability to communicate. Communication is telepathics. Tele is distance, pathics is feeling. So essentially it's feeling over a distance. We're all born with the ability. A mother takes her baby into the hospital and says there's something wrong with my baby. The doctors and nurses always listen because most of the time there is. Identical twins, one just knowing what the other's doing, that's been documented throughout history. It's all telepathics. But of course, from the baby's perspective, unless it's actually dying, telepathics really don't get validated. Then the child says its first word, mom or dad or whatever. Everyone makes a fuss. So the child learns verbalizing gets my needs met, telepathics not so much. Then they get that bit older and they might say the pony's got a stomach ache or the dog's got a headache. And often parents will either punish the child for lying or make fun of them. Don't be silly, horses can't talk. So of course you start shutting down on one and building up on the other. And telepathics is like any muscle. You don't use it, you lose it.
And how can we communicate with animals?
Clear mind, always a good thing. People that meditate, I don't, often find that helpful. Water's really important because you're using your energetic field. It's electromagnetic. Think of the snowy hydro scheme. The more water you drink, the easier it is. As a coffee addict, I really struggled with that in the beginning. But also don't start with your own animals. Start with someone else's because you need to remain detached in order to know what you're getting is from that particular animal and not from yourself. It's like doctors don't treat their own children. Clairvoyants never read for themselves. You need that detachment, particularly when you're starting, and you also need honest feedback so you know whether you're on the right track or not.
Do you have any examples of animal communication that you could share?
Absolutely. Very first, when I'd read the book, I actually started by reading a book back in the mid-90s called, surprise, surprise, Communicating with Animals by a guy called Arthur Myers, who was a journalist. Went down the horse paddock and the first horse I saw told me it wanted clean water. I looked in the trough, there was nothing there. I spent 2.5 years working every day, giving myself the migraine from hell quite often before I got anything else. And every time that horse walked by me, if he was on the lead rope, he'd plant his feet, stop and eyeball me. I'd love to know what the poor guy was trying to get through. Never got through anything again. One horse I worked with, the owner had called me as a last resort. The horse twice a year would blow up massively with fluid. It was down at the Werribee Vet School. It actually had to have a tracheotomy to keep breathing. That's how much fluid we're talking. They were feeding it bananas by the dozen because they were having to give it so much Frutix or furosemide diuretics to get rid of the fluid that it was losing all its potassium. They were going to euthanize it. Again, this was before internet. She literally pulled out a whole trolley full of vet notes. Started talking with the mare and the first thing she showed me was her foal and then said problems been since then. And the owners went, oh my God, she's never come back in season since she had the foal. And then they realised that the twice a year she was having the problem was actually when horses come in season twice a year. And it was when this was happening. A craniosacral therapy session from, this was before I did it, from the lovely Deb Lee, and a couple of bottles of she oak, the Australian bushflower essence, and the mare never had a problem again. Craniosacral therapy was derived from osteopathy, I think about 35, 40 years ago, but don't quote me on the dates. There was a couple of different people that discovered it, but basically your cranio is your cranium, sacral is your sacrum. The craniosacral rhythm can be felt anywhere on the body. You've got your heart rate, you've got your respiratory rate, you've got your cranial rhythm. CST, as it's called, craniosacral, CST for short, much easier for most people, works on the limbic system in the brain, so the emotional part of the brain. The most pressure you're putting on a body is literally that of a 5-cent piece. And then it's basically that whole doing and non-doing. The body's got its own wisdom. It knows what it needs. And quite often what a practitioner thinks the body needs versus what the body actually needs is a little bit like the Montagues and the Capulets. So you're simply allowing the body to unwind. And that's what I love about it. You'll have physical releases. You'll have emotional releases. Animals can process for 2 to 3 days afterwards. And the results really are profound. And yet it's so gentle you can do it on a newborn.
And could you give us some tips on how we can communicate with animals?
Think of, for most people, I think they find the proverbial thought bubble. You know, the little cartoon bubbles, putting a thought in there and throwing it at the animal. And whatever you get back first, that very instantaneous, that's communication. Quite often when I'm talking with an animal, the owner will get as far as, did he, do they? I've already got the answer, yes or no, because a thought is instantaneous. Trying to put words to something, particularly if it's an important concept, can take you a second or two. And of course, the thoughts being so instantaneous, it's trust your gut. That's the biggest thing. And whatever comes into your mind first, don't try and do the logical right brain versus left brain argument. You only wind up with a headache. Trust that gut. Whatever you get instantaneously and first is right. Every time.
Caroline, thank you so much for joining us. That was fascinating. If you want more information on Caroline Pope and the art of animal communication, head to her webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. Stay with us after the break, another interesting guest with an exciting topic.
Stay tuned. After the break, psychic medium and author Anthony Kilner will be talking about what do people mean when they say astral. Welcome back. Our next guest, Anthony Kilner, is a psychic medium and author, and the topic we'll be discussing is when people talk about the astral, what do they mean? Welcome, Anthony.
Thanks, Megan.
What is the astral and what does astral travel mean?
The astral is a really interesting space. In general terms, and not making it too complicated, me personally, I see the astral as a realm that surrounds the earth. And within the realms of the astral, there are 10 by 10 by 10 by 10, and it's basically levels that you go up. Now, the thing about that is everyone will have a slightly different interpretation on it. However, our spirit body goes out into the astral and is experiencing all sorts of different bits and pieces. I'll get to that in a sec. The main thing is understanding that unlike dreams, which are a soul message that require interpretation, they're muted in colour, the astral is vibrant. It's vibrant in its colour. What you do, what your spirit body does out in the astral really impacts what you feel on your physical body. And that's really interesting. So you go into the astral to meet your loved ones, you go into the astral to meet and have experiences with teachers, learning, that sort of thing. You can go into the astral realm if you're in one way to remote view into the future. So if you're looking to get a job, you might put yourself out there and experience that in sort of between the astral realm and your physical realm. So it's really quite an interesting topic in general. More specifically, our spirit body is going out there to experience everything that is in the astral realm. We meet our loved ones, and so any of our departed relatives. We can meet our friends, so we can all go to an astral point together. Now, how many times have you talked to people and they said, they get up in the morning, they just think, oh, I feel like I've just run a marathon, I can't get my body right. And you talk to them and they've been out partying in the astral, because that's the big party place, that very first layer of the astral. Closest to the earth as it moves around, sort of semi-elliptically, around sort of 1 till sort of 3, 4 in the morning. And that's when most people, they'll have an experience, they'll wake up and it might be 111 or 333 or something like that, or 222. It seems to be a lot of universal timing in how all that works. And once your body's out there, like I said, we can interact with people. We learn from the astral realms as well. So they're actually people, spirit people that live there, that don't just visit, and we learn from them. So there's a whole lot of stuff that happens in that space. People going into the astral and helping and doing what they need to do, and they quite often they go there and they help people as a spirit being. So if somebody has passed away and they need help to move into that realm properly, we quite often will go there in our sleep, not even knowing what we're doing, and we might be a police officer, a nurse, a doctor or something like that, that then helps guide them to where they need to be and gives them that opportunity. So the astral realm has got so many possibilities, such a huge topic, and yet we do it subconsciously in our sleep. We don't even think about it half the time, and that's the beauty of it. So when we are growing up from young children and our energy's developing and our spirit body's developing, it goes off and it experiences all facets of life, from intimate relations right through to having fun and learning about things, and it impacts us on a physical level. So all that is really amazing that our spirit body can do that, all in the astral.
What sort of training is involved to experience astral travel?
Okay, so there's a lot that can be done. We do it subconsciously, like I've mentioned, automatically from when we're a child right through to when we're an adult. And the training that can be done is learn to meditate. The deeper you meditate, the more chance you've got of your spirit body coming out of your body and going off on that journey. So a good teacher, a good practitioner, there are lots of different things you can do to learn how to enjoy an astral experience. And mostly though, to really get a hang of it, you would join a meditation group or a spiritual group, and they would do that as part of what they do. And then you can do things like go on group astrals, where you will actually meet the other members of a group and you will go somewhere specifically. Generally it's to do healing work on the planet or to help in situations that are cropped up from war or natural disasters, that sort of thing. So lots you can do in that space. So they're the main things. Find somebody that knows what they're doing with it and then learn from them. We talk about the ascended masters, people like Sai Baba and Jesus and all these other people, and they could actually leave their body in one space, their physical body as we would know it, and appear halfway around the world and look just as physical and real. And Sai Baba did this quite a few years back, where he appeared on like 3 or 4 different continents all at the same time, and people were ringing up to talk to other people to say, oh no, Sai's here with me and blah, blah, blah. So, many cultures, especially many indigenous cultures, do medicine journeys, that sort of thing, where it helps to release the spirit body out of the physical body to go on a journey to understand themselves. And that's quite technical, and again, it comes from a deep cultural belief of what they're doing, so they know what they're doing, they do it safely. And guided meditations, having the right teacher, having, to get them to go out to do that is really important in that space.
What suggestions do you have for our viewers in terms of their own astral travel?
Right, so good suggestions would be, there are lots of great books out there on an astral travel and how to do it. If you don't get the right information out of the book, then going to a good practitioner, somebody that knows what they're doing, someone that knows how to guide you there and bring you back safely. A good meditation teacher will be able to do it, a good spiritual teacher will be able to do it, and then, there are the other ways, like I mentioned before, of doing it. However, I believe that we can learn this just through practice. And the other really important suggestion is, if you're doing this at home and you're by yourself, don't have the pets in the room. Because if your spirit body's flying off somewhere and your physical body's here, right, if a dog or a cat or something jumps on you, it scares you and you jump back into your body really quickly. And you'll know and most of the viewers will probably pick up on this. At one point, you know, you would have been travelling in the car, head on the side, a little bit of dribble coming out, and you jump back into your body like that. That's your spirit body's been out doing something because you're so bored with what's happening. It's off doing what it wants to do, and it comes back in a hurry, and so that's what happens. And most people wake up in the morning, they wake up with a jolt, and that's because their spirit body's come back into their physical body. And where most people say, I feel like I got out of bed on the wrong side, that's because they're not lined back up. So probably the suggestion is go back to bed or lie down, visualize your spirit body and your physical body coming into perfect alignment, and then getting up again and moving forward for the rest of the day. So that would be my top suggestions.
Thanks, Anthony. That's such good information to consider. If you'd like to know more about Anthony Kilner and what people are talking about when they mention the astral, please go to his webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. And after the break, we have another interesting guest with another interesting topic.
Stay tuned. After the break, health, life and love coach Heather Belle Murphy is talking about the secrets of long-lasting love. Welcome back. Today we have Heather Belle Murphy on the show, a health, life and love coach, and our topic is the secrets of long-lasting love. Welcome to the show, Heather, and tell us, how many secrets are there?
There's actually quite a few, Kirsty, which I'm sure you can appreciate. If I can offer some great advice, as a bit of a mentor and being pretty seasoned in love myself, love is a skill like anything, you know, and I think there's been a cultural perception, or some of us who may have been raised with a religious overtone, and certainly I had an early Christian upbringing, that love just, you know, it's just this thing that comes naturally. So I've certainly grown up through relationships, and I've gotten better at it, and you know, there are obviously some skills which are really important to create a sustainable, loving life. And then, you know, a long-lasting, juicy, vital, fun, passionate, romantic relationship. Number one is definitely to fall in love with yourself first, and to know your strengths and identify your weaknesses. Now, if you know that you've got a really flaky, bad habit, for example, being bad with money, that's probably something which you prefer to address sooner rather than later, because that's one of those things that can make sustainable love tricky. A great saying is, when financial hardship comes through the front door, love tends to fly out the window. So that's one thing. You know, it's like being aware of what your strengths and weaknesses are, and if you can, address those weaknesses, or it's something that can be shared with a partner, you know, because maybe you don't carry the financial reins in the relationship. Perhaps, you know, that's a job for the partner. It's something that a particular person is poor in. Another thing is, so along with that self-love, is identify your partner's strengths and weaknesses. This is a really common, actually it's almost like we're entering the time with all the online dating, you know, and the Tinder love. It's almost like entering the menu log love stage, where relationships are starting and finishing, you know, within a few hours. So there is definitely learning dating skills for women in particular, and this was a big mistake, was that I didn't give myself permission to identify who I really wanted to be with. I tended to let the other person just choose me and then go along with it. And so I would end up in relationships where I was obviously with the wrong person. And then being young and naive and, you know, lacking skill in that area and thinking that love was unconditional, which is a really big thing for women, I would be trying to make a bad match work, and then thinking, you know, I need to just work harder at it. It was actually just that I was with the wrong person all along, because it was all a hormone driven, you know, that friction of, you know, passion, and physicality, but really the long-term juice just wasn't there, and it was actually never there to start with. So there is a thing about giving yourself permission to choose, knowing what your strengths are, knowing what you like.
Heather, does unconditional love exist?
I would answer probably no, especially when it comes to intimate, sustainable, long-term love, because this comes down to house training, which is about doing our part in the relationship. You're probably not looking at a long-term love picture if somebody thinks that it's okay to just, sit on the couch and eat chocolate. It's probably not part of a sustainable long love picture. So definitely the role where, and it's part of a healthy love life plan for, whatever an end result looks like in a relationship. So people are going to play their parts.
And what tips do you have for our audience?
Definitely, I would say have a love plan together, and make time for each other. So, I find it quite a common thing that when people have been in a relationship for a few years, they can get into the pattern of taking each other for granted, which may look like there's never date night. There's never date night for intimacy. It's not planned. There is also that plan of that end result about who you want to be in the relationship, and then how your relationship is going to look like. I love receiving flowers. I think it's an incredibly sensual and sexy act. And so, he gives me roses on a regular basis. Bit of a surprise in there, which is really nice. So it's never like it's a spontaneous Tuesday every week because he set a calendar to it or something. But it's a really lovely surprise. However, I've got friends. Now that was part of my juicy fantasy little movie that I played out in here before we met, that now projects out here. I've got friends who don't like holding hands, don't like getting flowers. They think, what's the point of receiving something that's going to be dead in a week? So that's not part of their plan, which is fine. So they've got a different plan. So of course, it all depends on choosing what we like to start with, and then being capable of receiving it. Now, women receiving is a massive, massive secret, and also gift to a man. I've got friends, and I've got those kinds of Facebook friends where they'll be posting, when a man loves a woman, he'll give her this, and hold her and do this, and then they can't receive a cup of coffee, or they can't receive the offer of a ride home. So receiving for women, which goes into our self-love, being the fountain of love, not the well of sacrifice, it's a huge thing. My partner knows when he gives me things that I really love receiving them, and also that I'm going to honour him in having given to me. That's a big thing as well.
Thank you so much, Heather. They were some lovely and insightful tips. And if you want more information on Heather Belle Murphy and the secrets to long-lasting love, go to her webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. That is the end of our show. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week. If you'd like to know more about our show, please like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel.